Good morning, Wrestling Inc. Get up, get going. Happy Monday. I hope you're ready to get your week going right. It is me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nicholas Thomas Hausman, joined here as I am every Monday to talk all the pro wrestling news of the week. It's our good friend, or weekend, it's our good friend, Michael Wiseman. Michael, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
A little NTH action today. Thomas, interesting middle name.
Nicholas Thomas Hausman. I have the whitest Christian name of all time. Yes.
So I'll tell you. Yeah, there you go. I'll tell you, Michael Anthony Wiseman. That is my God-given name or mother-given name. And she named me that because middle name she wanted to sound like whenever she got mad at me, she could say my entire name. So you can literally see she went down the baby name book and in the A's got to Michael Andre Wiseman, Michael Anthony Wiseman, and that's where we landed. So Michael Anthony Wiseman.
Michael Andre the Giant Wiseman. That has a good ring to it to me.
That's what my friends call me. So now you're in the loop, I guess, huh?
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. We got a big one here for you today. A lot of news happened over the weekend. We'll try to get to it all here in about an hour or less. Of course, the chat room is open. You can jump on in like Samantha, who says, good afternoon, all. Kristen Jones, good morning at Samantha. Dave in. You Hausman, Mark, see that he has heat with Grubhub? Yeah. 2 orders yesterday I placed through Grubhub. Both of them very, very wrong. One of them had a hair in it. I got full refunds for both, and I think I'm done with Grubhub now. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind. But for now, no more Grubhub. They don't sponsor us. I don't care.
The Grubhub was like the hair was from the restaurant, though, right? Like that. You got to have heat with that restaurant, too, though, huh?
Yeah, but like the thing is, Grubhub has certain quality controls in place that like usually assure that the food is going out in a right way. And I know they're under new management. And, you know, anyway, I don't want to get this isn't a Grubhub podcast. I'm not going to get into it.
That's Nick.
Right.
That's your upcoming cookbook, right? There's a hair in my food.
To be clear, I used to work for Grubhub. I was one of their original inside salespeople. I was with the company very, very early. Anyway, all right. Hey, like I said, lots to get to. Chat room is open. Jump on in. We'll put your chats up here on the screen, just like I did. Before we get to what's going on here in the show today, let's start off with some good news this week, Michael. Congratulations to Dewdrop Piper Niven. She got married over the weekend to her fiance of 2 years. So congratulations to Dewdrop. Love is in the air to start the week, Michael.
Gotta love it. I'm happy for people who get married, find their true love, and wish them years and years of much success and happiness.
Yes, absolutely. And so for today, talking about success and happiness, great guest here on the show. If you're listening to us in audio form, later on after the news block, which will probably be a little longer than usual today, you're going to get to hear my latest conversation with friend of the show, Jimmy Corderas is back with It's All Greek to Me, talking not really about All Out the show, but more like the historical nature of it, a lot of the comings and goings around it, what he thinks is somebody who worked as WWE through the Attitude Era, of what this period is like. Is it good? Is it bad for WWE? It's a beautiful 20-minute conversation. So you'll get it here in audio form. And if you're watching us in video form, it'll be live over on the Wrestling Inc. YouTube channel in less than an hour, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can stop watching this, start watching that. I highly encourage it. Jimmy Corderas, very, very smart man. And at the end of the show for everybody, we'll dive into the mailbag, and we're going to look at WWE superstars, past and present, who possibly could be jumping to AEW, a big conversation of the moment. All right, with that all out of the way, Michael, are you ready for some news you can use? News.
Are we going to get through this in an hour, Nick? We have until 1 o'clock to get through this run sheet. Oh, my God.
If you don't jump in with little comments like that, we will. Yes, absolutely. It's time for news you can use. News that will leave a bruise. It's about to get bruising in here. I saw Michael flip me off or whatever he was doing there. All right. Top news. We'll start with WWE stuff, and we will wind our way into AEW later on. The top WWE item, of course, last night, Samoa Joe, released this video on Twitter announcing he's relinquishing the NXT title after WWE Medical informed him that due to certain injuries, he will have to step away from the ring for a brief amount of time. What's your reaction to this one, Michael?
The timing, man. The timing is very suspicious. And maybe this is a legitimate injury, but sometimes they use injuries for storyline purposes. Okay. So 2 days, 3 days before the epic relaunch of what we're considering NXT 2.0, they're calling it. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm a little skeptical, but also if it's legit, I feel really bad for Joe, who has had just the worst luck and worst string of injuries in recent years.
Yeah, I agree. It is a double-edged sword there. If he is injured, like, good on WWE for catching it, taking him out of a situation where he could possibly push himself to get further hurt. But, man, really, really hard to ignore that timing, right? I mean, 2 days before WWE NXT Ever Rise, I mean, because 2.0 is an AEW thing now. We get their top champion dropping the title. One of the things that has felt so interesting to me as we prepare for NXT Ever Rise 2.0, whatever. Maybe I'll stop my dumb joke. But is the fact that there was so much continuity storyline-wise going into this new NXT with the Indy Hartwell Dexter Loomis marriage, with this fatal four-way to determine the new number one contender, comprised of all of the people we're already used to seeing at the top of the card. I felt like something like this was going to happen, and that's what gives me even more pause to question the validity of it, because it felt like if you're going to be doing a reset of NXT, it can't just be cosmetic. There's got to be some kind of story change-up, character change-up that you're going to play with from the get, and removing the champion is a great way for you to open up the doors to do something in your main event picture very, very differently, starting on your re-debut program tomorrow night.
Well, you talk about the reboot, right? And all the characters that they have been introducing via some great vignettes in recent weeks. If you've been watching NXT, the way they've been kind of bringing in some new people. And Samoa Joe on the opposite end represents everything about, if you want to call it NXT 1.0, that we've come to know, right? He was a guy that was in Impact Wrestling before, on the indies, a huge name that maybe nobody in WWE thought he was going to get hired to. He gets brought into NXT, becomes the face of that brand, and then he moves up to the main card, gets maybe a little bit underutilized, although they had a pretty good run with him. He gets let go by the main roster and gets rehired at NXT. So he very much feels like he was what NXT meant and stood for up until this coming Tuesday night. So the idea that he would carry that championship on as that constant reminder of what NXT used to be just felt like a little bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that's probably why they're getting rid of it, right? They had to do something to do a break continuity-wise. We have Polio Del Mar here saying, storyline reboot of NXT title. Stupid. Yeah, I think there could have been a more creative way to get this title off of a guy like Joe, who worked through some of the worst booking in TNA. Remember when they threw him in a trunk and they kidnapped him?
This just reminds me, Nick. It reminds me of whenever they finally. This is, by the way, not NXT 2.0. This is like NXT 4.0. They did the game show version of the original NXT. Then they did the WWE Network. So let's just. 2.0 is a stupid name for this, but it reminds me of whenever they did that final ECW show before they transitioned from ECW to NXT. Christian was the champion at the time, and he lost that title to Ezekiel Jackson. And it very much felt like they were trying to say, listen, out with the old ECW, in with the new stuff. Now, they never did anything with Ezekiel Jackson, but WWE does like to draw these hard lines in whenever they're starting a brand new era,
Yeah, 100%. Let's see here. We have, I like this comment from Rob Humphrey. They should select a new champion via lottery. Honestly, I'm not going to, Jimmy and I talk a little bit about, we can talk more about this in the mailbag, but Jimmy has a pretty good idea for what they could do here that I like, that maybe I'll bring up in the mailbag if I remember it to kind of touch on. So while we're talking NXT, BodySlam.net, our good friend Cassidy Haynes, reported WWE made another round of production-related cuts to NXT this week. NXT is down to a skeleton crew as far as production goes as they gear up for a new look starting this Tuesday. Of course, NXT is being billed as NXT 2.0 while the company moves away from the darker look at the Capitol Wrestling Center. I'll add Fightful saying officials are being tight-lipped about what changes they have in mind. Numerous wrestlers have asked NXT higher-ups about what is being planned, but they were given non-answers about what the new direction entails. Regarding the creative direction for NXT, it's being reported they are hoping to have more characters, but no details were provided. Interesting. The new NXT is going to include a new logo, theme, a new look to the weekly TV show, plus a new look for the Capitol Wrestling Center at the WWE Performance Center. No longer Are they at Full Sail University, which I don't think is something that a lot of people have really noticed or talked about. It was noted how wrestlers and staff have had good things to say about how the Capitol Wrestling Center has been looking. It was said that the physical changes to the venue looked to be an improvement. It appeared to be a much scaled down version of the main roster TV sets to some degree. And on a related note, talent are said to be in the dark about who's actually going to be running NXT, since Triple H has been sidelined while he recovers from recent heart surgery. Like building a castle in a swamp. There is so many moving pieces here. What are your takeaways from this one, Michael?
None of it's surprising. None of it's shocking. This is exactly what you would expect if you're thinking NXT, brand new, with Vince and Kevin Dunn involved and Bruce Pritchard involved. All of this jives. Unfortunately, it's happening right on the heels of the unfortunate news about Triple H and his recent heart condition. So well wishes to him, because I don't have a chance to say that publicly yet. But it's just, I don't know. This is exactly, now the skeleton crew part surprises me, because it feels like if you're going to a bigger production that looks more like a scaled down WWE main roster arena, you would want more production elements there, more production people. I've argued since day one on this podcast, Nick, we talked about it whenever AEW and NXT first went head to head. I said, how long until Vince McMahon says NXT looks too much like it's taking place in a bingo hall and we're going to break it out? Unfortunately, it required them to completely reset NXT to get there. But the biggest thing for me, Nick, all this news involved, it reminds me so much. If you remember, WWE was all excited back in the mid-2000s. We're bringing back ECW one night only, one night stand. We're doing it again. They brought back a real ECW product in a little scaled down bingo hall. And then they got tired of it and transitioned to ECW 2.0, which was a developmental system for guys like Jack Swagger and et cetera, that they use that very much look like SmackDown and Raw. This is the exact same thing. We'll see what happens, but I'm not convinced it's going to last.
Oh, no. Samantha here saying, oh, no, gimmicky NXT era. And to wit, Brian Bills, 1417, the ECW zombie is coming back to NXT. You know, wouldn't that be something? Yeah, I hadn't really put those pieces together, Michael. I looked at it quite like that. But you're exactly right. Like, there's like an organic charm and connection fans had with ECW, and they played into it for a little bit, but they just couldn't let it ride. And by the end of it, it was just WWE superstars with the Sandman, you know, yep. and Sabu. So I do worry a bit that we are headed in that direction. I will say, though, I'll give it a chance. I think that the dark lit room that they've been in has been really unappealing. It doesn't look big. It doesn't feel big. You know, we are still in this pandemic. Sadly, in many cases, it's much, much worse. But visually, fans have become accustomed to something that is a little bit more grand in this moment. And NXT just does not fit that bill right now. And so if it is brighter, if we could see more fans, not change the product dramatically, but just kind of allow it to look more aesthetically pleasing, I'll give it a shot. But this Samoa Joe thing has all of my carny antenna up, and I am working with my head on a swivel. We have Polio Del Mar here, a wonderful, lovely Thursday co-host. My guess, WWE has almost no idea what this actually will look like, so no info available to the talent. I think they know what it's going to look like. I don't think that they know what creatively this thing is going to – how creatively will it be different? And what is different creative for WWE? What is different by WWE standards creatively anymore? I don't even know what that means, you know?
Well, to that point, thank you, Polio. Like, this is – what Vince McMahon does and Bruce Pritchard do. There were stories a week and a half ago of Vince McMahon ripping, maybe it was last week's Raw. He ripped up the script immediately beforehand, just hours ahead of time, and they changed the entire thing because he wasn't happy. They do a lot of off the cuff. We're going to change creative. We're going to go with their gut on this, right? That's right. His MO. And that's not what Triple H and Shawn Michaels seemed to do before. They had storylines planned out from takeover to takeover, and they went and wove and all that stuff. That's not what this is. So they don't have these plans mapped out. I am looking forward to seeing what it looks like. I am looking forward to seeing how it comes to life, because it will be something different, and that always excites me. But long term, I am just a little bit sus, as the kids say.
Well, you know, WWE gives you reason to be suspect, right? And to wonder if you are going to emotionally be rewarded the way that, you know, I bluntly will say AEW seems to be rewarding their fans recently. There was a kerfuffle here coming out of WWE's MSG episode of SmackDown here this past week, which, by the way, according to Ariel Helwani, was the highest grossing SmackDown gate of all time, not just in New York, but of any city ever for SmackDown, a brand that has been around for 20 years. And for all of the hay that is being made about the momentum of AEW and the dire straits of WWE creatively, that's a good thing. That's a good press release to drop in front of your shareholders, is it not?
It absolutely is. And it's good. It's a good news to bring to your fans. Fans are excited about your product.
Good job, Vince. You're doing great. Don't let it phase them out, Vince. Don't listen to them. Those marks don't know anything. You're killing it. You're making hand over fist. So anyway, there was a next women's tag match on SmackDown. And SmackDown was a pretty great show, to be honest. The double main event kind of stuff really worked. But Fightful's saying there was going to be a women's tag team match scheduled for the show. It got nixed due to time restraints. It was going to be Liv Morgan, and as Post Wrestling is reporting, Toni Storm versus Carmella and Zelina Vega. The tag match being nixed from SmackDown led to the hashtag Give SmackDown Women a Chance trending. Vega had custom ring gear that paid tribute to her father, Michael Trinidad, who passed away in the 9/11 attacks 20 years ago. She and Stephanie McMahon took part in a pre-SmackDown screening of WWE's Never Forget WWE Returns After 9/11 documentary, but she did not get to perform on the show. She tweeted photos of her gear and captured the post with, "Never mind." At a time when you're trying to humanize yourself to the wrestling fan base and show that you are not the callous, cold, heartless entity that you have seemingly been portrayed as for nearly a year now. This one's tough pill to swallow, Michael. Tough pill.
I think it's very unfortunate because she was involved. If you've not, they did release a documentary this weekend. You should check it out. It's a little bit of that classic WWE self-grandizing, but it is worth watching if you're a fan of WWE, especially in that era. They did put a show on immediately after 9/11, but the problem is that documentary makes it all about what the company did right. And I think, to your point, Nick, this is about what an individual and their personal life and personal connection to 9/11 was. And it's very much what WWE does nowadays. The company is the face of everything. They are the ones that give back. They have done all this great work. Everything is about the company. That human connection, Zelina Vega, her personal connection and her personal loss is such a much more impactful thing for somebody to connect with than just WWE as a brand. Furthermore, what does it tell your talent across the board whenever you have this moment to do something special for somebody and instead you just blindly cut it, unfortunately?
Yeah, dude. I mean, just a layup, right?
Yep.
Like a gift. And I don't want to say a gift because it's very unfortunate what happened to Taya, obviously losing her father. But I mean, as easy a PR move as you could do, you're in New York on 9/10, the day before 9/11. I had friends who are not like even hardcore wrestling fans texting me this weekend being like, dude, what happened? Wait, what? Like, they didn't know that that Taya had this connection with her father. And then when you start to hear it and put the pieces together, like there was a real anger I felt like from a lot of fans over this situation. And like, this is not the time. You want to be pissing off your fans even further right now by doing something like this. Just sloppy shot, my friend. Sloppy shot, Michael.
Well, in the locker room connection, right? I mean, the current narrative is that if you are a wrestler, AEW locker room is the place you want to be. You get heard. Tony Khan is a great person to work for. You get TV time. They actually respect you as peers. It's a lot more fun. Whereas WWE, that locker room perception has really been undermined in recent years, partially because of AEW. So to again go out there and basically take one of your talent's really personal stories and just completely ignore it after you had that chance, it further continues that story of WWE is about nothing but the brand. They are all about their company image and they don't care about the individuals. It's unfortunate.
Well, and Alonzo Smith saying here, well, if they didn't get like 10 Roman Reigns segments on SmackDown every week, there'd be more time for other superstars to shine and get at least one women's match. It was a tough show, right? I have to imagine the thing that ran long was whatever that basketball player dude was out there doing, just because that thing just seemed to kind of go and whatever, you know. There were parts you could have squeezed out of that. It was still a damn good show, though. Obviously made a lot of money. And I get your complaint, Alonzo, about Roman Reigns, but Roman Reigns is the golden goose right now. And like every time that guy's on screen, even if it's a little thing like a look at Paul Heyman or an interaction with his cousins, it's good. Do we need that much? I mean, whatever you could have done to get the lead on that show, I think would have probably worked. But Roman is big business. I don't knock them for putting him on the screen as much as they do on Friday nights.
And him and Roman, him and Brock were the story of Friday, and that's why people tuned in, and that's what they're going to be attracted to. I get that. But you look at the way that WWE and AEW book shows, AEW doesn't put everybody out there every week all the time. There was something else they could have pulled from. Maybe not Roman, right? But there was that basketball segment. That would have been a great AEW dark match or whatever. I know the big name there with the Atlanta Hawks connection and all that stuff. But yeah, there was somewhere else to pull from if you booked your shows slightly differently.
We'll talk about, booking, right? And going back to the well, Randy Orton and Bobby Lashley, that match may be being moved up from the Extreme Rules pay-per-view to this Monday night on Raw tonight. So a commercial aired on SmackDown hyping Orton versus Lashley for the title on this Monday night's Raw. There was no mention of the tag match that they're booked for at Extreme Rules. The Orton versus Lashley match for Extreme Rules is still listed on the website, as is the tag team match, but Orton and Lashley were still hyping the Extreme Rules match as of earlier in the week. This is very, very confusing. This is the kind of stuff that people hate and are getting burned out on, and they don't know where the ball is in the cup. And why is Randy Orton being pushed back into this main event picture? It is such a glaring indictment of the depth of their babyface and or heel side on Raw at the moment, which is thin.
So I imagine it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to end up in a, no contest and some kind of non-finish, right? That way they can continue the story at Extreme Rules. Or Randy Orton's going to win the championship to hopefully pop a rating. Well, you should have watched Monday Night Raw this week. Tune in next week. And both, I think, are short-sighted and reactive. I know people will say, we don't watch an AEW. Our blinders are on, right? Our only competition is sleep. But very clearly, to me, personally, in my opinion, this is a reaction to last week's demo comment.
Yeah, I feel like Goldberg's going to get involved in this one way or another because, like, the Goldberg-Lashley stuff is not done, right? And it's just kind of been sitting out there. I also kind of feel like the Randy Orton stuff, and I don't know how you get through it without putting the title on him, but it does seem like this is the last kind of feud they're going to put some time into before Goldberg takes that title back from Lashley at Crown Jewel, which I think is the inevitability at this point, which is unfortunate.
They go back to their old... this is classic WWE, right? Things get bad, we go to John Cena. We go to Randy Orton. We go to our big names. Brock Lesnar is back. Bill Goldberg is back, right? And it's what's been kind of cutting you off at the knees for years without having new stars. So I said for a while the Finn Balor feud on SmackDown was just a transitionary feud to get us through Extreme Rules. Lesnar, Randy Orton, very much feels like, not Lesnar, excuse me, Lashley, Randy Orton very much feels like the exact same thing. But I can also see WWE wanting to pop a rating. Let's put the belt on Randy Orton for a couple of weeks. Lashley wins it back at Extreme Rules to go on and fight Goldberg at Crown Jewel.
Yeah, and that's the thing is Bobby Lashley gets Roman Reigns secondhand booking. It's always like, we're going to book you kind of like Roman, but you're not going to get the booking first. You're going to get it after Roman's done the booking. But there's one other thing in here, Nick, and I don't want to dig too deep into the SmackDown storyline but you saw on Friday night that we have Big E coming out and now saying they haven't made this quite so clear before, but that he can challenge any champion that he wants to with that Money in the Bank briefcase. He can go to Raw and challenge for the WWE Championship. So I almost don't wonder if we're going to kind of weave and toss and turn and maybe get a Big E swerve out of this somehow or another, but we'll see. I really, really hope not. Antonio Garcia saying Randy could win because Goldberg Lashley at Saudi isn't going to be a title match. That I would prefer that with Randy beating Lashley clean, taking the title, setting up some kind of rematch at Extreme Rules only for Goldberg to come in and set up a Saudi match that's not for the title. That I would prefer than let's break the glass and it's some arbitrary moment in time decide it's time to bring in Big E to get into the WWE Raw picture. With baby faces, I hate the last minute cash in. They're like, you want to see Big E walk out, say Extreme Rules is 3 weeks from now. I'll see you there. Bobby Lashley, set up, call the shot, win, don't win, but do it admirably in a way that a babyface would do it.
That's right. You also get a chance to pop a rating or pop a number because fans tune in. If they're behind Big E, they're tuning in to see Big E conquer Lashley. They're tuning in to see whoever go over their hero win and conquer all. So I also hate the last minute, but WWE likes surprises, not long-term storytelling quite so much.
Well, before we start to get into some AEW news here, last purely WWE item, a couple of the Performance Center recruits have new names. Parker Bordeaux, because you got to change that name. Who knows who that kid is? It's going to be, he's now going to go as Gunnar, spelled with an A, Gunnar Harlan. Bronson Reichsteiner, the son of pro wrestling legend Rick Steiner. He's going to go by the name Rex Steiner, which honestly, like, I dig Rex Steiner. I'm not sold on Gunnar Harlan.
Parker Bordeaux, it's got too many hard consonants. X Parker Bordeaux. Who can even spell Bordeaux? Has it got X's? Has it got Y's? I hate this. I hate naming anybody Gunner. My dog's name when we adopted him was Gunner, and we changed that shit immediately to Parker.
I agree. Gunner is not my preferred name. And Gunnar Harlan, like Brock Lesnar, Gunnar Harlan. It's I don't know. It doesn't have the same kick. Rex Steiner slaps. That
awesome.
name
I love it.
That's a great name. Yeah, Dave in here saying Rex Steiner is money, baby. Yeah, 100%. Gunnar Harlan. I'm gonna have to see him. I'm gonna have to identify him with that name. Why?
It reminds me of whenever TNA used to name all of their pay-per-views and made them sound like they were pornos, like Hard Justice, right? Gunnar Harlan starring in Hard Justice. Like that's showing up on Pornhub later, ain't it?
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first. So, like I teased, let's move into some AEW news here. Now, this is my pivot story. There's usually one story that involves both AEW and WWE somehow, and this one is interesting. So, AEW star MJF, he's not thrilled to be traveling to Newark, New Jersey this week for Dynamite. On Friday night, he tweeted out, "Do I really have to go to New Jersey?" Several superstars, such as Liv Morgan and Baron Corbin, responded. Morgan, a native of Jersey, reassured MJF her home state is lovely, worth visiting. But there, meanwhile, was also Happy Corbin, who seemed to agree with MJF's views and called New Jersey the absolute worst place to visit. MJF and Corbin then had a brief exchange where Corbin even thanked MJF for lending him money when his luck ran out earlier this year. Is this cool or sad? What is this? What do you think this is?
I think it's cool. I like it. I've been into Baron Corbin and this change of character. I think he's thrived as both down on his luck Corbin and now Happy Corbin is interesting. But I think it's fun because Baron Corbin is tapping into this mindset that fans outside of WWE care. And he doesn't do that a lot, right? But he's leaning into the fact that, hey, if I get a little bit of that rub from somebody else, the fans are booing, they're going to continue to boo me. And I think it's smart business on both men's part. So I appreciate it. Anytime we see these companies interact in kind of friendly ways, it's best for pro wrestling in general, in my opinion.
The reason I say is this sad is because it smells to me like AEW has a very interesting character in MJF.
Sure.
And WWE, and I don't think with Liv seemed like a nice little thing here, but with Corbin, and I like what Corbin's doing right now, and I don't really particularly take issue with this exchange, but it certainly seems like Corbin trying to get the rub off of MJF. And that is why I'm like, I don't know. Like, is this cool? He's lucky MJF was like, you're a liar, that didn't happen, whatever, shoot him down. Because he could have easily done that, right?
But doesn't that make you hate him even more though? Even if you leave, yeah, I agree with you. It does seem a little desperate, but you're kind of like, God, Corbin's kind of a little bit of a douche for doing that and trying to rub off of somebody else's, goodwill right now, right?
Yeah. And with MJF, because he called out, I think it was Edge is like, I'm better than you, and you know it. And it was Rollins who said it to Edge. And MJF was quick to call him out, like, hey, at least give me my 10% or whatever it is that he said. I would tread lightly if you're a WWE superstar and think you could have fun with an MJF. This one seems to have worked, but he will not play nice as well. I guess you got to know him, that Maxwell Jacob Freeman. So
he'll go, but it's also generating news though, right? We're talking about Baron Corbin on Monday. He was not featured on Friday that I remember. He's generating some news out here on a Monday morning. I like it. It's all a good fun.
All right, now let's get into the meat of the AEW news here. So I guess this one is also kind of a pivot story. The Wrestling Observer says that Sami Zayn's WWE contract is set to expire before the end of the year. It is crazy to me how many of these stories have come up here recently. An exact date is still unknown. He signed initially back in 2013. This comes after word of his very good longtime friend, Kevin Owens' WWE contract expiring in January of 2022, not 2023 as originally thought. And the Observer going so far as to say Kevin Owens' contract, the exact date it comes up, is January 31st, 2022. So you could go ahead and mark it on your calendar there. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. We've also got the Observer saying that Bray Wyatt, if he signs with AEW, he could debut at the September 29th edition of Dynamite on TNT. That'll be in Rochester, New York, the hometown of Brody Lee. The possible date for Wyatt's AEW debut is interesting, as it was believed that he is also under a 90-day non-compete, which would expire on Friday, October 29th, a week before Full Gear, and 1 month after that taping. So it's not known if Wyatt has some kind of other non-compete that is not the standard 90-day. I guess he's also been talking to Impact, maybe as a play to get more out of Tony, maybe because there's something else where he's not somebody AEW wants to do business with. And I've heard a lot of speculation about what that could be, but I don't want to get into it here. And if he does it, then he'll debut, at an Impact pay-per-view here in October. But Zayn, Owen, Wyatt, we just saw Punk, Bryan, Cole. This is a massive tectonic plate shift of talent that could possibly be coming to AEW.
Well, and the shift has also happened where we legitimately believe a lot of these talents will jump ship. You go back 2 or 3 years. Could they? Well, WWE will offer them a sweetheart deal. They're more likely to stay. They got lots of money to throw at them, yada, yada. I feel like nowadays we're saying it is very likely that these wrestlers who came up from the indies, who haven't maybe been given the same spotlight in recent years, want to jump. Let's break this down a little bit. Bray Wyatt. If he goes to AEW, obviously there's a great fit for him there. Right now, the Dark Order is in disarray. Everybody wants to be the new Dark Order leader. Great storyline there, right? Honors Brody Lee, important arena, all those things. If he goes to Impact, right, there have been rumors of Braun Strowman potentially joining Impact Wrestling. There's a connection there. Could these two team back up and give a throwback to early Wyatt family days? Lots of unique stuff happening there. But for me, and I love Bray Wyatt, the creative genius behind that mask is phenomenal. But Kevin Steen, right, Sami Zayn, those are the guys that fit the AEW mold so well, and that the fans are excited to see come in and just tear the roof down wrestling-wise with this great crop of AEW talent. I love it.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. And I guess I'll start with the Bray Wyatt stuff first here. Like Rochester, home of the late Brody Lee. If it is possible for Bray to be free and clear, to be there on the 29th, Braun Strowman and Eric Rowan over his shoulders. I mean, that is a moment. And Tony Khan loves those moments. And I don't think you need to have Bray, Braun, and Rowan come in and become the leader of the Dark Order. I far more prefer Brody's old family feuding with his new family. Like, okay. I would just call them the family. It's creepy. It's Manson-esque, whatever. Like the family feuding with Dark Order, maybe a couple Dark Order people defect to the family. I could see that because of the internal confusion there. But that is far more engaging to me than bringing Bray in to just lead the Dark Order and try to zhuzh it up and make it something new. No, I don't think anybody really wants. I mean, I think people would maybe want to see it, but when they see it, it lacks a little bite. I think inserting them in as this foil to the Dark Order would be great. And I hope all this Impact stuff, like I understand if there are issues that make these people like somebody you don't want to work with for whatever reason, then Impact, I guess, makes sense and is really a testament to how oversaturated professional wrestling is at the moment. But I think you do what you can do to make that happen. I don't know why you would pass on it. And in my mind, I'm already like emotionally connected to it.
So should we expect then that Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, because they are under contract and their contracts are up, that they will not be under a 90-day non-compete clause, that they would be able to jump ship immediately, just like we saw with Adam Cole, correct?
That would seem to be the case, yeah, and that would put them top of the year in AEW. I mean, you're going into WrestleMania season and half your roster's gone. You
got AEW Revolution happening, in February typically? I don't know if we have an exact date yet. The timing on this is perfect. It goes back to Vince McMahon's comment a few weeks ago on that conference call, right? Let's see if we can give them a few more of our talent, or whatever the exact quote was. That's an insane thing to look at now with the high level of talent and caliber jumping over. I get it. NXT 2.0 getting ready to launch. We're going to build up some guys. We're going to have Gable Stevenson ready, maybe main roster in 2022, right? That's some rumors out there, but it's still, you got a lot of work to develop these guys, in my mind, into the same caliber of name as a Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
We have Antonio Garcia here. I don't blame Sami Zayn if he leaves. He's got a genuine beef with WWE over the Saudi shows. Of course, Sami Zayn's not allowed to do the Saudi shows because he's Syrian, and the Saudis have issues with that. So nothing screams inclusivity like discrimination, that's for sure. We have DX Vex. KO and Sammy would be another big get for AEW, or big gets. Yeah, absolutely. We have, I saw a couple more here. We have Polio Del Mar saying, welcome to the Family Feud, in reference to my there. And we have the Voyager 47 full gear might be in Minnesota, I guess is what they're saying. So anyway, then we move on here to some talents that are already with AEW. We'll start with Bryan Danielson. So the Observer saying he signed a 3-year deal. That'll keep him there through summer of 2025. He'd be 44 years old at the time. Why do we get to know how Daniel Bryan's contract, how long it is, and not CM Punk's? Remember when I asked him that? And he's like, I don't think you want to know. And I was like, I do want to know, but anyway. So Bryan signed a 3-year deal. That's a good chunk of change for him in AEW. I'm happy to hear that.
He seems a lot more open about these things too. The Punk is a very secretive, private person with this stuff. Bryan Danielson just seems like the most open dude in the world, doesn't he?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, he told us we could ask him questions about his sex life with his wife. Didn't do it, but he did tell us we could. The Observer saying, although AEW is able to match WWE's offer to Bryan Danielson, WWE pushed hard for a long-term deal and the ability to work in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So Vince McMahon himself apparently gave Danielson permission to work the G1 Climax tournament, a lengthy round-robin tournament in Japan that would have taken him away for about a month or longer to follow current quarantine regulations. Now, it was speculated McMahon may not have been aware of what the tournament actually was when he gave Danielson the okay. And you may think that's crazy, but one of my favorite Vince McMahon stories is a former writer that's like, Vince was like, what do we do for lunch? And he's like, why don't we do burritos? And Vince was like, what's a burrito? And they had to explain to Vince McMahon what burritos were. So we're talking about a man who is billions of dollars, that lives in his own world. Maybe he doesn't know what the G1 is. I totally buy that story.
And the best thing about that story is he was literally eating like a chicken wrap every day for lunch and had no idea what a burrito was, right? Like, it's just, what do he think is like a racing event? Like, I just imagine that there was this conversation about, give him whatever he wants, pal. He can go do that indie shit, and like not realizing there would be international travel involved, right? Like,
So WWE president Nick Khan, he was attempting to work an exclusive deal out with New Japan around this time, which prompted Tony Khan to speed up talks and get their deal going with New Japan. You may have remembered that very unusual promo that Tony cut around that time, where he was very upset about the reports that WWE was talking to New Japan and really wanted to play down the idea that they were. But over the last few months, we have seen AEW and New Japan stars popping up in each other's promotions. What an interest. I'd really love to go back and find out more about that particular period of time, because New Japan, as far as I knew, was very, very unhappy with their top talent leaving for AEW as quickly as they did, without really kind of putting over a lot of talent on the way out. Had the pandemic not hit, I don't think that we would see this New Japan AEW relationship. I feel very confident we would be seeing a full court press New Japan North America, United States expansion right now. But the fact that then you find yourself in this foxhole where you're New Japan, your North American expansion's paused, you're having difficulty running in your home country. Here's Tony Khan saying, let's let bygones be bygones. There's some stuff we could do here. I'll forget the past if you do. I'm going to do some stuff for you right now. I'm going to give you some favors. And later on, you can pay me back. We'll figure out a way for you guys to do something nice for me, which is all surface level. Tony's made various comments like that. But then comes along Nick Khan, and he grabs Jado and Gato, and it's like, hey, guys, Brian wants to come over and do the G1. It's very outside the box, but would New Japan be interested in working with WWE on this? And if this goes well, maybe more. I can imagine the shiver that went up Tony Khan's spine there, realizing that, New Japan could have turned their back on Tony. I don't know exactly what the relation, or I don't know what the conversations were, but as kind of a receipt for what the Elite did, I could see New Japan saying, well, maybe we want to go work for Vince now. Maybe we don't want to work with you. But they didn't do that. There's a lot that goes into that, and I don't know all the details, but it's a very, very unique period of time. And Daniel deciding to ultimately go to AEW obviously took all the leverage with New Japan out of WWE's hands and decidedly back in Tony Khan's.
Well, and there was also the changing of leadership in New Japan in the last couple of years, right, with Harold Mage. There's like lots of little cogs in the system that developed to this. I think Tony Khan rightfully knew that Bryan Danielson was one of those seismic shit. We talk about Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They're huge, right? CM Punk, Bryan Danielson in the same month, it very much feels like the level of the Outsiders jumping ship back in the mid-90s. And so I think that losing that prospect, this Punk is a huge get, but the guy coming from the other company who has come out and said he was happy over there joining your company is the kind of locker room fodder that you need. And it makes everybody else take your product that much more seriously. But also from New Japan's standpoint, yeah, they've been struggling with this American market for so long. I almost wonder though, if they looked at WWE and said, hey, listen, everything WWE is doing is from a very protective of their own brand standpoint. They're not really open to partnerships. They had WWE Japan open to filter talent into their own system, right? They've been opening up NXTs all across the world. Is that a company that we really think is going to help promote us, or are they going to end up cutting us off at the knees whenever they get the chance to continue to slow our growth? So I'm happy it all worked out the way it is, but man, this is interesting stuff here. And I can't imagine New Japan would have ended up on the right side of things had that original deal gone through.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. We are where we're at, though. Everything changed. And last year about Danielson, the Observer saying that Danielson kept a notebook of things he'd learned from Vince McMahon. So whenever Danielson would pick up a nugget of information from his former boss, he'd write it down. And the new AEW star has an incredible amount of respect for Vince McMahon. But I have to feel Daniel Bryan called Dave Meltzer directly. There's been way too many things in the Observer about how much respect Daniel Bryan has for Vince McMahon, and I have to believe that's intentional. Could be wrong. Feels that way.
I just love the story here, too. We talk a lot about Mox, who is very dissatisfied in WWE Creative. We talk a lot about CM Punk, who was obviously treated a certain way, and WWE did not like it. It's refreshing to hear a talent jump ship and said, yeah, I respected where I was happy there, but I wanted something more. I really like this story because it speaks to the positive impact AEW is having as well.
Well, and it's terrifying, too, if you're Vince McMahon. It's like, leaving your quarterback for the Chiefs and you bring the playbook with you to when you go work at the Patriots, right? Like, I know their plays, guys. I was taking notes, right? Like when they run, quarterback sneak or whatever, we got to be over here and do this thing,
When they do a Lashley versus Randy Orton main event on Monday Night Raw's a reaction, this is why.
And the more dangerous thing I think for WWE here is the sheer amount of like minds that are circling together and seemingly working harmoniously over at AEW right now. If the trajectory that WWE is on right now is more Gable Stevensons, more Brock Lesnar types, less independent wrestlers, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to do what they're told because they don't know any better. But you're not going to have a lot of people standing up to you, giving their ideas, trying to create a more compelling product because the people you're working with don't have that same passion for pro wrestling that the other group of people that you're dealing with now have, right?
Well, they don't have this. Yeah, they don't have the same passion. They don't have the same outside influence. They've not been around. Creative people go and pull in from a lot of different sources, right? People that work up their way in a corporate environment, they learn that one way. And so, but you were squashing that creativity for so long as WWE. Are you really losing that much with this in the long term? They don't want that. They don't want that pushback. They want the prototypes, right?
Yeah. Dave in here. Vince taught Daniel Bryan about burritos. I don't think that's true, but I'm willing to give it a belief. You know what, Dave? I trust you.
It was the other way. Daniel Bryan taught Vince about the burrito.
Okay, that makes sense. So two more items here before we get to Jimmy Corderas, and we'll dive into the mailbag, talk for a little bit. The Observer saying Fox and CM Punk had a great relationship thanks to his time on backstage, And Fox had pushed WWE to sign him. Now, WWE initially said the money was too high to bring in someone like Punk, so Fox offered to help out with that to get him signed. They were going to do the old TNA deal, Spike TV, giving him money for Hulk Hogan. So WWE officials then told Fox, there are other reasons we don't want him, including attitude issues. He's the one with the attitude issues. The report also said Punk and Tony Khan discussed money and storylines by February, March of this year. Punk was the one to suggest his debut at the United Center, and both he and Khan agreed to specifically not announce Punk's arrival, but do enough to let people know he was going to be there. The big thing for me here, Michael, is what happens 2023, TV rights come up, NBC offers Vince McMahon $11 billion to buy the entire company outright, move SmackDown back to USA, put everything under the Universal umbrella. They're going to build their little Universal Studios WWE park, and that leaves Fox out in the cold. And Fox obviously wants to be in the pro wrestling game.
Right.
The negotiations between AEW, between Warner Media and Fox, and especially if AEW has Punk, who Fox wants, that could be a really, 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 really interesting story to follow here in a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because it seems like they know what they're talking about too, right? Obviously, WWE playing defense there. Oh, he was hard to deal with. We don't want him. Money is not. That's not it. That's not what we were talking about. But it was a challenging personality, right? So, to Fox's credit, they do, in my mind, have, and ratings show this, they have the premier pro wrestling show every week, right? SmackDown, highest rated pro wrestling show, right? AEW generating a ton of buzz, but I think the Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar draws in a casual fan in a way that AEW does not have yet, based on ratings alone and demographics. But how much is that going to change in coming weeks and months and when the TV deal ends? So I don't know if AEW is ever going to be under contention of like, hey, maybe we want to spread out, because that TNT, Warner, they put a lot of trust in AEW and Tony Khan. And I'm sure that's going to be respected and reciprocated, but also money talks, and Fox has deep pockets. And if they were to go to Fox Friday nights, prime time, or any other kind of night, prime time on a broadcast network, that's going to continue to expose AEW and give them a much bigger audience than even what they have today on TNT and TBS.
Yeah, I echo all of that. All right, lastly here, before we get to Jimmy and then the mailbag, so stick around. I love this story. TMZ reporting that veteran pro wrestler Al Snow saved a child from drowning this past week. Snow was at Santa Rosa Beach in Destin, Florida on Thursday when he heard a child yelling and screaming while he was in the water. Snow looked around, saw the boy being hit by waves while a rough current was pulling him away. He jumped into the ocean, pulled the boy to safety. He said that there was a lifeguard on the beach, but he knew she wasn't going to make it to the boy in time. He added that the rescue nearly turned dire as a wave took both he and the boy under. This caused him to remember former WWE superstar Shad Gaspard, who died in May 2020 after saving his son from drowning in the Pacific Ocean. Snow said neither he nor the boy suffered any injuries. The boy's mom cried, thanked Snow repeatedly. Snow also noted that after everyone was safe and sound, there was a lighthearted moment as a couple on the beach recognized him from his pro wrestling days. We started off with Dewdrop getting married. We're going to end the news here today talking about Al Snow saving someone's life, a child's life. Just good guy stuff here from Al Snow. Getting the job done. JOB, Job Squad.
Freaking heroic, man. And that's the only way to think about this. Like this, Al Snow, yeah, he's an athlete and all that stuff, but he's going in, risking his own life to save somebody else's life. It's just a testament to the kind of person that Al Snow is. And God, that family is so fortunate he was there. And we're all fortunate that we have Al Snows in this world to do this exact thing.
All right, Michael, thank you for joining me at the top of the show, talk all the news of the day. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thank you for dropping into the comment section. We're not out of the woods yet. We'll drag some more of your comments over onto the show here as we get into the mailbag. And, of course, thank you to Jimmy Corderas. My latest conversation with Jimmy debuts in 8 minutes. If you're in video form with us live right now on Wrestling Inc.'s YouTube channel, so jump from this to that. And, of course, if you're in audio form, you already heard it. Let's dive into the mailbag here. I want to start off with a big question this week, right? We talked about a lot of names that could potentially be AEW bound that aren't there quite yet. So which of these superstars potentially jumping to AEW are you most excited about? Is it a Kevin Owens? Is it a Sami Zayn? Is it a Bray Wyatt? Or is it somebody else with over 900 votes here in about an hour? 49.5% Kevin Owens, almost 2-1. 41% Bray Wyatt. Only 6.3% for Sami Zayn and then 3.2% for somebody else. What are your thoughts about this poll, Michael?
I think this poll very accurately reflects the way these talents and superstars have been used in WWE. Sami Zayn's out there every week, but he is really the annoying mic worker. He does great in-ring work, but he's not been featured in that main event slot. He's not been featured as the big player in the same way that Kevin Owens and Bray Wyatt have, because Kevin Owens, rightfully so, has been a multi-time champion and all that. So not surprising, but I think Kevin Owens edging out the win here just speaks to he has a connection with the fans that I don't think WWE always recognizes. Kevin Owens, I know he does a stunner, but he just has this like do anything attitude, kind of like Punk, that is very much what fans connected with Stone Cold Steve Austin back in the day. And I hope that AEW sees that and capitalizes on it.
Yeah, I actually voted Sami Zayn. I think that Sami Zayn, like you said, is really just a mouthpiece right now in AEW. And I mean, look, the guy's a fantastic talker. He is a wonderful storyteller. I think he is one of the best in-ring workers of our generation. I think Sami Zayn in an AEW space will over-deliver. Like the fact there's such high expectations for Owens and Wyatt and stuff, I think maybe kind of is a hurdle for them. I think Zayn comes in, and I think he just off into the races. And I saw somebody earlier say that they wanted to see Zayn and Owens come in as like an outsiders group. I would like to see them come in together, too. I think it would be really cool to see them together. So I picked Zayn. I understand Owens. We talked a lot about Wyatt and why we think he'd be a good fit. Terry Allen Jr., by the way, with the super chat saying the WWE 2K22 roster appeal is decreasing. I mean, it has got to be tough if you are designing that game and they call you every week, hey, here's 8 more people that are no longer with the company. Please remove it from them. You
better enjoy the creator wrestler mode, is all I'm saying. So there you go.
Peter Bahai over here on Twitter says X-Pac, Sean Waltman. Who doesn't want to see him in AEW? I think it's going to be a couple more months. We have at Chris S. Catch Can. I voted for KO, but if I could get anyone at all, well, they have already signed most of them. Liv and Shotzi would be my final 2 picks. So a lot of Liv Morgan in AEW would take off just like a Ruby Soho. She'd actually be a great reuniting with Ruby.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. That'd be really cool.
At WWLTDI1, I don't think of anyone who is no longer with WWE as having jumped to AEW exclusively, even though Tony Khan may be the one endorsing their paycheck. It's at least possible they could pop up just about anywhere from time to time. Wrestling prison versus the wrestling free world. Okay. All right. We have at Angel in Disguise. I would love to see Murphy show up. I'm surprised we haven't seen him show up already in AEW, to be honest.
Yeah, he looked a perfect fit. Very talented wrestler in the ring, underutilized. Yeah, but we'll see.
At Megan the Powers, Charlotte. I don't know about Charlotte, but with Andrade taking out old Shabo there on Rampage, kind of seems he's setting the stage for a new manager, Ric Flair, doesn't it?
That's exactly right. It seems like somebody else out there looking for a change. Yeah, man.
I've heard Arthur Ashe is where they could be trotting Flair out. So we'll see. A lot of write-ins here for Bray Wyatt. One here for Ricochet from at Marchowski 1985. Not sure that Ricochet is available to jump. Let's see here. We have Polio Del Mar saying, KO is such a great fit. Wyatt tells a fantastic story, different types of characters. And lastly, Rob Humphrey here. I'm a huge mark for both AEW and Sami Zayn. Match made in heaven in my eyes. All right. Well, Michael, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. We did it, man. We did it here just a little less than an hour. What do you want to plug, promote, put over here to wrap up the show today?
Great to be back this Monday. Hope everybody had a great Labor Day, a great week last week, but I'm happy to be back here. Keep up with me on Twitter. I am at The Real Wiseman. I love the conversations about pro wrestling and sometimes about non-pro wrestling things like video games or technology or old cartoons. So have at it.
Yeah, I am at Nick_Hausman over on Twitter. Hit me up if you want dog photos or Pokemon conversation. That's really about all I'm good for over there anymore. I will talk to you tomorrow. We'll be joined, of course, by tomorrow. I didn't plug tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to have EJ Cameron from Second City here talking all the news of the week. Also, Liam Crowley, one of our new contributors over at Wrestling Inc. He had a chance to catch up with Mojo Mutati, a.k.a. Mojo Raleigh. So we're going to have Mojo in the house here tomorrow. Of course, if you want to support Wrestling Inc. daily, support WrestlingInc.com. Tune in to the Wrestling Inc. podcast at night after the big shows, including Raw tonight, to get even more punditry from Wrestling Inc. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And remember, if you winked,